I think you said we're 45th out of 50 in our education. And so my question is, why isn't that important to the people in charge of stuff? Why don't we make our children a priority?
When you looked at the pie chart and you saw how much money is being spent, K through 12, and you see this, boy, if you didn't blacken it out, you couldn't even see how much was being spent, on early childhood development.
I'm a kinder teacher at Sibiata Elementary. I live in the teacher's housing. I'm not a Native American. But I'm really concerned about my students coming to my class with very limited vocabulary and poor communication skills.
I guess my biggest concern right now is the responsibility where we're putting the responsibility. Are we giving it to the schools and the state to give them the responsibility of educating and disciplining our kids, or are we keeping it in the home and building the foundation in the home?
Anything that we do, I wouldn't want to take away from the ability of parents to help their kids.
I think one of the most important aspects to focus on is prenatal parent training. I think that many parents, young parents, there's a tragic epidemic, don't get the hang of it until the fourth child, maybe.
I think my main concern in this town is babies having babies. The babies can't even educate their little babies because they're not educated themselves.
It all starts at home. The money that is being dumped into all these programs is being misused. There needs to be accountability by somebody, and it needs to be special elected people from the communities to oversee these guys, what they're doing with the money. I'm tired of it going in their pockets and not to our kids.
Let's look at the pros of all the scenarios, because this isn't just about our schools. This is about our families and our communities and our schools.
This is about the kids. And I know that money's an issue, but all the investment that we make into a program like this, we're gonna save in the future.
We want to expand programs to include everyone, not just low-income families.
If you have kids, whose choice was it to have kids? And whose responsibility is it to have those kids and pay for them? I think society in general should pay for them because your kids will benefit me. So I'm willing to go out and pay for your kids. But I think it's a tough question.
We're talking about kids that are 0 to 5. They are not able to be responsible. And should we say not let a kid get health care because the parents spent money on alcohol? Should we not give kids education because their parents are not responsible?
The opportunity should be there for early childhood education for all children under the age of 5, but it shouldn't be compulsory necessarily.
I think that program should be provided for all children, for everyone, and not just based on judgment of your income.
And yet, when the programs are just for low income, the middle class doesn't fit in there. They're not allowed, they pay for the programs, but their children are allowed to use the programs. So I think it should be for both.
For the groups, for the environments, or communities or families, we didn't get that far, that are lower income, they need more support than the higher income.
I think a community center or something, if they want to go and meet with a person, that's fine. But I think once they come into your home, then they're going to be observing things that not necessarily need to be observed. How I raise my children.
I do think that it's important to have home-based services, even if you're not low income. If I'm a 2-parent family working and we're trying to do the best that we can for our kiddo because we don't qualify for all these other services.
If a parent wants it, it should be available. The resource should be available, but like they said, maybe like group classes or something, or a one-on-one, just a parenting class. Not necessarily for them to come into your house, because sometimes there's a stranger coming into your house.
The educator has to be educated themselves about the different cultures, because not every culture does and believes everything the same way.
If you partake of any program, you have a requirement to be involved in some way. That's what we thought. You just can't drop your kids off.
I think that was unanimous at our table was that the New Mexico State Legislature not be involved at all.
Yes. That was.
Can I get an amen?
It seems across the board we have an issue of accountability, and nobody really trusts the bureaucracy to handle efficiency. They've proven that they don't do that.
The further you get away from the higher government, where there's more checks and balances, down to the lower levels of government, there's more chance for corruptness or redirecting these funds.
And see, I see that, and I also, though, see the people in Santa Fe don't have a clue what's going on next across the street from me. That the local people would know better and might get better buy-in, because it's not just free money. It's this is what we have to do. I don't know which way I come down on that.
So I think, again, it goes back to those community expectations of what do we expect out of our kids, and just supporting each other. And
you can set up all these programs. You can, go out and, say you're campaigning for something, but what's to say that the people at home are going to really be receptive to it? What's to say they're going to take all these lessons learned and you actually use them?
We were thinking of it as some communities are not as functional as other communities. So then you're getting into a quagmire of problems.
I think it's important to have somebody on the state level, a commission or auditor, however you want to term it, but I don't think the money should just be handed to communities and let go. There needs to be an accountability somewhere of what the funds did and what they accomplished.
A lot of us are more comfortable with people who are actually in the community and know what's going on, as opposed to maybe somebody in Santa Fe.
We want community oversight to ensure progress. We want to make sure, we want someone overseeing the progress that is being made, and if there's not, why isn't it being made?
But I also feel that employers need to be involved, because I believe that, according to what this says, and I've seen it in the workplace myself, women need time off. Men need time off to be with their children.
I'm not poor, but I can't get any assistance, and I think that it would be nice if my employer put some money to help me pay daycare.
a corporate level may be able to help child care assistance or whatever, help put that in there for a family. But if it's a local tire shop or a local small business, are they going to be able to afford that?
We thought it may create an element of discrimination against those trying to get a job that have children or suddenly not hired because they have children. An employer would rather hire someone without children.
How are we going to expect a small business to pay an extra tax burden for that employee? I'll just hire someone else.
A business is a business. Their main profit is their own priorities, and if they start doing things like this, it's going to cut down. It's going to cut into their own profit margins, their own, the way they run their business, basically.
I think employers there should be incentive, because if you're a mom and pop operation with 1 or 2 employees, you cannot deal with the same thing that, say, Walmart can deal with. So to require somebody to be involved is a whole different thing than giving them an incentive to be involved.
Now you are going to circle your three top ways to pay for all of our changes.
Out-of-state companies and the wealthiest 5% have kind of gotten away with it for too long. You know what I mean? They should have been contributing this whole time, and that's why our school system is suffering so badly.
The one thing I want to make sure, and she wrote on the board, is accountability. I want taxes increased to pay for these preschool programs. I do not want to read in a newspaper how the city of Espanola found a surplus of money, so they built, something.
I don't think we should cut, the policemen or the fire department or, things like that. I think there's some higher level government people that are spending our money where it should not be spent.
Require out-of-state companies to pay taxes on profits earned in New Mexico.
Halliburton is part of that, Walmart's part of that, and I don't think they're hurting, and I don't think they're going to leave.
If we are in an emergency situation, then I would agree to tapping into that fund. If we decide we're not in an emergency situation yet, then I would be against it. Once again, this fund is set up for emergency situations, so I guess that's the ultimate question. Are we in an emergency situation with our early childhood development?
They have to be careful. Once we start drawing down the principle, so to speak, it'll drain.
We're sitting on all this money, meanwhile our children are falling farther and farther behind. We're becoming a state that's just not well educated. I mean, why can't we use why are we sitting on this?
Tobacco and alcohol taxes, and it was interesting because we had kind of a conflict there, but we came to the idea and the concept that take something that's really ultimately negative for society and turn it into something good.
I enjoy my beer, and I enjoy a smoke here and there. But yeah, it's a luxury, I guess, So I'm willing to sacrifice that for, the education of my kids.
All of us need to get involved one way or the other. And if it takes paying, higher taxes, regardless whether we really want to or not, isn't it for the significant good for our kids?
Our education system is broken and it is in desperate need of repair.
Now I realize that it starts with our babies and they don't have a voice. We have to be their voice. And the decision makers need to adjust their priorities accordingly.
I knew statistically we were below the average, but I didn't know how far down we were.
Why hasn't this been addressed prior to this, this session today? And why aren't, this is an emergency in the way that it shows in just raw statistics. So I would say why has it taken this long, and why aren't we doing something today?
Investing in education now will certainly come back in the long run, both monetarily and in just how well our communities run.
All the children need all the funding, not just the low-income ones.
The most surprising thing I learned today was how little we spend on early childhood development. I think if a lot more people knew that and knew how important it was, there might be more of an outcry.
And the one message for the decision makers is to remember who's going to be taking care of you in 20 or 30 years. It's going to be our kids, and the education that you provided them is what's going to determine how well you're taken care of in your nursing homes. So.
And to our politicians, our lawmakers, whoever does all the final decisions, I just want them to know that, they need to get us involved as teachers, parents, community members. When that final decision is going to be made, we need to be involved. And that's why we vote, right? So get us involved.